Have you ever encountered the guy who glides through life, dodging any form of responsibility while charming everyone in his path? He's the one who always forgets his wallet during dinner or disappears when the project deadline looms. He might be your endlessly fun buddy, your clueless co-worker, or that son who seems perpetually trapped in teenage mode. This intriguing phenomenon is known as Peter Pan syndrome, a silent tragedy where a man clings to youth not out of whimsy, but due to deep-seated fears and unresolved emotional ties. Hey everyone, welcome to Psychologist Jeep, the safe corner of the internet for men who still feel like boys pretending to have it all together. Today we're diving into something most of us quietly carry: the Peter Pan syndrome, that strange tragedy of never quite becoming the man we thought we'd be. So if you've ever laughed at your pain, avoided mirrors, or wondered when becoming a man actually begins, this one's for you. Before we start, hit like, share this video with a friend who needs it, and drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from and what growing up means to you. To truly grasp this bewildering condition, we must dive into what it means to grow up. It's not just about counting the birthdays or showing off bulging biceps. True manhood encompasses accepting responsibility, mustering the courage to face life's inevitable calamities, and having the audacity to build and contribute. Unfortunately, the Peter Pan type flees adulthood, reveling in a never-ending teenage phase where the fun reigns supreme and responsibilities are mere annoyances. Their world spins around impulsivity while reflection gets tossed out the window, mistaking freedom for irresponsibility. Psychologists kicked off the terminology Peter Pan syndrome back in the 1980s, highlighting men who exude chronic immaturity in various areas of life. These fellas aren't just slackers, they're often ensnared in patterns that feel safer than the daunting terrain of adulthood. They perceive safety as a bubble, a shelter that keeps pain, failure, and responsibility at bay. Ironically, this bubble leads them into deeper suffering by the very avoidance of growth. They shimmy away from adulthood, blissfully unaware that they birth a quiet despair within themselves. Let's face it, growing up isn't about having everything together, it's about facing reality. It's the act of looking in the mirror and accepting your choices and obligations without flinching. A man who skids around adulthood plays a game that ultimately leaves him feeling incomplete. He cultivates shallow relationships while his career stagnates like a forgotten plant, and emotional evolution hits pause. That nagging sense of despair may go unnoticed by others, but it looms large in his own heart. What keeps a man stuck in this perpetual adolescence? The reasons are as varied as the weather. Sometimes it comes down to not learning from strong male role models. Perhaps dad was a ghost or was too emotionally distant. In other cases, he was cuddled too much, missing out on the crucial lessons that adversity can teach. Fear looms large over many Peter Pans, the terror of failure, responsibility, or plunging into a world that demands more than charm might just keep them trapped. This syndrome is not something to laugh off. It's a creeping erosion of potential and promise. Envision that man who's brimming with talent and ambition but can't decide to jump into action, is forever distracted, procrastinating his way through life while juicy opportunities slip through his fingers like sand. Each choice he puts off becomes a weight, yet he lugs it around like a badge of youthful honor. Meanwhile, life doesn't wait for anyone. It marches on, raising the costs of missed chances behind the scenes. Peter Pan syndrome doesn't just impact the man himself, its rippling effects are felt by everyone around him. Partners often shoulder the burden of unshared responsibilities, stuck managing life's logistics as well as the emotional weight that should be a team effort. Children grow up with a dad who's there physically but missing emotionally, a charismatic jester who just can't show up when it counts, and all the while, the man questions why joy feels so elusive and success remains just out of reach, caught in that terrible cycle of missed connections and ongoing confusion. Maturity isn't about coming with a manual that restricts your life, it's actually like being handed a master key to adventure. When a guy finally steps into manhood, he discovers the superpower of crafting his reality, making choices, and loving without the fear of vulnerability. Unfortunately, the man stuck in perpetual adolescence believes he's dodging handcuffs, when, in fact, he's just hopping away from true freedom, a freedom that's born from courage, discipline, and realness. Imagine the prefrontal cortex, the ultimate boss of decision-making, still fine-tuning itself into the mid-20s, like a software update that never quite finishes. But maturity, that's a spicy brew of experiences, reflections, and good old challenges. Gentlemen stuck in the cycle of reactive living are like dial-up internet in a 5G world, forever buffering, lost in the moment, and unable to learn from the past, like a Netflix binge watcher who forgot to hit pause. Let me introduce you to a character I used to know who exemplified this whole conundrum. He was the life of the party, quick-witted, sharp, and adored. But commitment, well, he treated it like an oversold concert ticket, never lasting long enough for anyone to truly get comfortable. Although his outward persona radiated freedom, inside he battled a gnawing anxiety, as if life was slipping through his fingers while he danced away from discomfort. He later realized that true living requires stepping out of the shadows of avoidance. Swipe to today's culture, where distractions reign supreme. Entertainment overload has become a double-edged sword, prolonging adolescence under the guise of limitless possibilities. A youth-driven social media frenzy glorifies living in the now, choosing rebellion over responsibility, while the lines between boyhood and manhood fade like an old Instagram filter. Sure, it's tempting to get lost in endless scrolls, but deep down, everyone craves that sense of purpose and connection that can't be gained from just scrolling. Facing this modern dilemma isn't a walk in the park, it's a wrestling match with your own reflection. To leapfrog into maturity, one must embark on a journey of self-discovery, staring down their choices and fears like a boss. Honestly, owning up to your mishaps is less about punishment and more about unlocking the door to sweet autonomy. It's about flipping discomfort on its head, viewing it as a wise mentor rather than the enemy. Taking the plunge doesn't require a swan dive. Small, dedicated acts can lead to substantial changes, like setting boundaries or holding yourself accountable. Even when Netflix is calling your name, philosophers and psychologists stress that maturity hinges more on awareness than age. It's about intentionally aligning yourself with your values amidst life's obstacles, relishing the beautiful chaos of responsibility. Then there's the old Peter Pan syndrome, such a cliffhanger. Too often, men hit the snooze button on personal growth, confusing youthful freedom with the thrill of adulthood. But alas, true liberation waits behind the adulting door they hesitate to unlock. Meanwhile, life marches forward, leaving those anchored in boyhood watching life like it's a missed bus they'll never catch, leading to regrets, missed chances, and that nagging sense of what if. Yet, it's never too late to turn the ship around. Even belated awareness is the magic key to metamorphosis. Every act of bravery, however small, adds up. Embracing discomfort, shouldering responsibility, and seeking authenticity can transform the very fabric of your brain and life. The real tragedy of Peter Pan syndrome isn't that these men can't be saved. It's the unnecessary suffering they endure when the rewards of embracing their potential are within arm's reach. Imagine the resilience and joy waiting for them on the other side. The question hangs in the air for all those fellows out there who get that twinge of recognition when they think about their boyhood days. How long will you hide in the cozy shadows of boyhood bliss? When will you swap out charm and distractions for a hefty dose of courage and commitment? Growing up is no walk in the park. It's more of a wild roller coaster filled with unexpected twists, liberating all the same. Becoming a man isn't like flipping a switch, it's more like slowly unfurling from a cocoon. Every day brings a negotiation between the sweet temptation of desire and the tough love of discipline. It kicks off with what appears to be harmless choices, but trust me, they pack some serious weight. Think paying your bills on time or having those awkward chats you've been dodging. These seemingly trivial actions are the true foundation stones of character, silently molding you into adulthood. Now let's talk about emotions, or rather the avoidance of them. Picture this: a lad trapped in boyish antics, dodging emotions like they're dodgeballs, fear, grief, shame. Nope. He'd rather distract himself with quick laughs or fleeting thrills. Surprise. Surprise, real men face their discomforts head-on. Acknowledging those pesky feelings doesn't make them weak. It transforms them into fierce sources of power. And before long, that courage evolves into a habit. And habits, those become your identity as an adult. But it doesn't stop there. Relationships take a hit too. A guy sidestepping responsibility can't dive deep into friendships or love. Instead, connections hang around like an awkward acquaintance, superficial and lacking. Lack of accountability leads to fatigue in the people around him. Deep connections thrive on maturity and vulnerability. The irony: even the most charming chaps can find themselves feeling lonely when they can't nurture meaningful ties. Let's not overlook the sneaky role of education, shall we? Life, that relentless teacher, hands out lessons like candy. However, only the observant ones snag them. Men stuck in boyhood often overlook crucial insights from their blunders. Mistakes are just roadblocks to them, not the wise companions they could be. Observing and reflecting on experiences allows them to turn failure into a stepping stone rather than a lead weight pulling them down. Time is a stern teacher indeed. Each moment spent ducking growth is a moment tossed away, forever lost. Youth, sweetly romanticized, slips through your fingers like sand. The more a fellow stalls in avoidance, the tougher it is to scale that steep cliff to true adulthood. But fear not, even if the epiphany hits you late in life, that spark of awareness can change everything, igniting a fiery commitment to growth. Now here's a philosophical nugget. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke once mused that life must be lived forward and understood backward. So, what happens to the guy who clings to nostalgia and the comforts of youth? Life, oblivious and relentless, keeps moving forward. It demands engagement, courage, and a readiness to embrace discomfort. Only when you step into the present, with responsibility on your shoulders, can life unveil its delicious fullness. Lastly, let's chat about those cultural myths that wrap this journey in a shiny bow. We often hear legends about eternal youth or carefree rebels, but the honest truth is often left untold. There's weight in the journey of growth, and it requires self-reflection. A man yearning for maturity needs to watch himself without throwing shade. By questioning oneself and seeking out those uncomfortable truths, he sets his foot firmly on the path toward genuine adulthood. Life's beauty truly blossoms with growth, and let's be honest, freedom without responsibility is a recipe for chaos. Picture a joyous kid left unsupervised in a candy store. The pleasures of life lose their fizz without purpose, and charm can feel pretty shallow when not backed by integrity. True manhood isn't all about banter and bliss. It's the fine art of blending joy with duty, desire with discipline, and a dash of spontaneity mixed with healthy accountability. Mentorship. It's like having a seasoned tour guide on the roller coaster of life, learning from those who have already navigated the twisty paths of responsibility, heartbreak, success, and all the delightful messiness in between grants us insider wisdom. It's not just about observing, it's about soaking it all in, reflecting, and acting on those lessons. Humility is key here. Having the appetite to learn instead of just admiring from a distance is what sets the wise apart from the whimsical. Now, let's talk about the infamous Peter Pan syndrome. Sure, it's kind of cute to avoid maturity, but what really gets lost is potential. Every cringeworthy moment of avoidance translates to a life scarcely lived. Those who prefer to lounge in perpetual boyhood miss out on vibrant experiences, stuck watching life like a spectator at a game, wishing they'd taken the shot. But hey, there's a silver lining. Growth is not off the table. Acknowledging the avoidance is already half the journey. Imagine regularly swapping distraction for intention, each conscious choice, commitment kept, and fear confronted creates a tidal wave of momentum. It's like transforming from a sloth into an ambitious little cheetah, just without the sprinting. Though growth can sometimes feel like watching paint dry, incremental and invisible, it becomes an undeniable spectacle over time. Embracing responsibility doesn't box you in. It's like bursting open a treasure chest of freedom to forge deep connections and leave a lasting legacy. Now, let's face it, growth isn't a cakewalk. Expect the bumps, the self-doubt, and those seductive sirens calling you back to safety. Each struggle leads to resilience, and what once felt burdensome evolves into a sense of capability and pride. Nobody wants to be the guy stuck in the 90s, right? Opting for this growth path means you're not just avoiding perpetual boyhood, you're actually stepping into the fullness of being human. Your relationships deepen, purpose clarifies, and instead of being tossed by life's waves, you steer your own ship with intent. The tale of Peter Pan becomes a reflective piece for anyone teetering on the edge of growth. It poses a critical choice: stay nestled in charming boyhood or leap into the realm of manhood, shoulder responsibilities, and embrace your true potential. The path is both lonely and quietly thrilling, filled with sweeping moments of authenticity. While life might sass you for avoiding responsibilities, it rolls out the red carpet for courage. Every effort towards being accountable transforms survival into a life bursting with meaning. And isn't it inspiring? The greatest measure of manhood isn't about age or charm, it's the bravery to confront oneself and engage with life authentically. The journey, while trying, evolves into something stunning. Stepping into growth opens doors to freedom, depth, and a rich sense of purpose. Adulthood isn't some destination. It's a canvas that beckons you to paint a life of love, intention, and meaningful existence. In this quest, you unravel the profound joy of living life fully, finally becoming the man you were always meant to be.